A waitress refused to serve him, but she had no idea his daughter owned the place. The morning sun streamed through the wide windows of a small diner in Monterey, California. The aroma of sizzling bacon and fresh coffee filled the air, blending with the low hum of conversations. It was the kind of place where everyone knew each other's names and usual orders. Everything seemed routine until the door creaked open. An elderly black man, neatly dressed in a charcoal suit and polished shoes, stepped inside. He held a cane in one hand, his posture slightly stooped yet dignified. His eyes scanned the room briefly before he headed to a corner booth. As he sat down, an uneasy tension spread through the diner, subtle but undeniable. A group of men near the counter exchanged glances. A woman with a stroller hesitated mid-sip of her coffee. The atmosphere shifted. It wasn't overt hostility, but the discomfort was clear. The waitress, a young woman with blonde hair tied in a loose ponytail, moved briskly between tables. She handed menus to a young couple, refilled coffee cups, and took orders. But when her eyes landed on the elderly man, she hesitated. Offering only a curt nod, she turned and walked back to the counter. Minutes passed. The man sat quietly, occasionally glancing at the laminated menu. The waitress didn't return. The other patrons noticed but avoided getting involved. A middle-aged woman frowned but returned to her phone. A young couple whispered to each other, casting awkward glances. The man raised his hand politely, signaling for service. The waitress glanced his way but ignored him, pouring coffee at another table before disappearing into the kitchen. The tension grew thicker. Patrons exchanged nervous glances, yet no one spoke up. The elderly man remained calm, adjusting his glasses and rereading the menu. Around him, the diner buzzed with activity, but he was invisible to the staff. The waitress reappeared, smiling warmly as she served pancakes to a family by the window. Her cheerful voice carried across the room. But as she passed the elderly man's booth, her smile faded, and she looked away. At the counter, a man leaned toward his friend. "Do you see what's happening?" he whispered. His friend shrugged. "Not our business," he muttered. At the counter, a man leaned toward his friend. "Do you see what's happening?" he whispered. His friend shrugged. "Not our business," he muttered. After 10 more minutes, the man shifted in his seat, tapping his fingers on the table. He raised his hand again, holding it there longer this time. The waitress walked by with a tray but ignored him once more. Slowly, he lowered his hand, his shoulders sinking slightly. The bell above the diner's door jingled, breaking the heavy silence. A confident woman in her early 30s entered. Her heels clicked against the tiled floor as she scanned the room. Dressed in a tailored blazer, she exuded purpose. Spotting the elderly man, her face lit up, and she hurried over. "Dad," she exclaimed, her voice warm and cheerful. The man's face brightened, and he stood to embrace her. Their hug was tight and full of love. The room, previously buzzing with quiet tension, fell completely silent. Every eye was on them. The waitress, pouring coffee at another table, froze. Her hand trembled slightly. The young woman pulled back from the hug and looked her father over. "You haven't been served yet?" she asked, her tone sharp. The elderly man hesitated. "Not yet," he replied simply, though his calm tone hinted at quiet disappointment. Her expression darkened as she turned to the waitress. "Excuse me," she called firmly. The waitress turned, her face pale. "Yes," she stammered. "My father has been sitting here for almost an hour." "Why hasn't he been served?" the woman demanded. The waitress stuttered. I was just about to get to him." "Really?" The young woman's eyes narrowed. "Because it looks like you've been deliberately ignoring him." The waitress flushed red. "It's been busy," she mumbled. "Don't lie to me," the woman snapped. Everyone here saw what happened. Murmurs rippled through the diner. A few patrons nodded in quiet agreement. The tension in the room shifted from discomfort to accountability. Turning back to her father, the young woman softened. "I'm so sorry, Dad. You shouldn't have to deal with this." The elderly man smiled gently, patting her hand. "It's all right," he said, though his eyes betrayed a quiet hurt. But his daughter wasn't done. She turned to the waitress. "Let me make one thing clear," she began, her voice firm. "That man you ignored, he's my father, and I own this restaurant." The room froze. The waitress's face turned ghostly white. You own this place," she whispered. "That's right. This diner was built to welcome everyone, no exceptions. Today, you disrespected my father and everything this restaurant stands for." The waitress stammered an apology. I'll do better, please. I'm so sorry." The young woman stared at her for a long moment. "You'll have the chance to prove it. But if I see anything like this again, you're done." Turning to the other patrons, she addressed the room. "Why didn't anyone speak up? Silence is complicity. Next time, don't stay silent." As she led her father out, he smiled at her. "You've become an incredible woman," he said softly. "I learned it from the best," she replied. This story reminds us of the power of respect and standing up for what's right. If it inspired you, please like, share, and subscribe to Unfolded Tales Explained. Don't forget to press the bell icon to never miss a story that moves you to take action. Together, let's make a difference one story at a time.